Robert was 79 years old, and from the outside he seemed to be doing well. He lived alone, but he managed. He cooked his own meals. He watched the news every morning. He called his daughter every Sunday. When she visited on holidays, he seemed like himself, a little quieter, maybe a little slower to laugh, but basically fine. Aging, she told herself, just aging. What she did not see was the rest of the week. Monday through Saturday, Robert spoke to almost no one. The phone rarely rang. He ate every meal alone at the same kitchen table where he and his wife had eaten together for 41 years. He watched television for 6 or 7 hours a day, not because he loved the programs, but because the sound of voices made the apartment feel less empty. 18 months earlier, after a bout of pneumonia, he had stopped going to the senior center. At first it was temporary. He needed to recover. He felt weak. He told himself he would go back when he felt better. But he never did. And slowly, without anyone noticing, Robert's world became smaller. 4 rooms, a television, a few errands, a Sunday phone call. His daughter assumed he preferred the quiet. She assumed he was simply introverted. She assumed that if something were truly wrong, he would tell her. But he did not tell her, because he did not have the language for what was happening, because he came from a generation that did not talk about loneliness as a health problem, and because in a painful way he had stopped recognizing how small his life had become. By the time his daughter understood what she had been missing, Robert had spent nearly 18 months without the kind of daily stimulation, movement, and social connection that helped protect an aging brain and body. His mood had declined. His thinking had become slower. He had fallen twice, and his doctor had described much of it as normal aging. But it was not just aging. It was isolation. It was isolation. And I'm telling you Robert's story because it is not unusual. It is happening right now in the lives of millions of older adults, in homes where families believe everything is basically fine. Today, I want to show you what social isolation actually does to the aging body and brain, why families miss it so often, and what you can do this week to begin changing the trajectory. If Robert's story sounds familiar, stay with me, because what looks like just getting older may be something your family can actually change. Let's start with the part most families never hear. Chronic loneliness and social isolation are not just emotional problems. They are health risks. Research has found that loneliness, social isolation, and living alone are associated with a significantly higher risk of premature death. The numbers are serious enough that researchers have compared the risk to other major health threats, including smoking, obesity, and heavy alcohol use. And yet most families do not respond to isolation the way they respond to other health problems. If an older parent is gaining weight, the family notices. If they are drinking too much, the family worries. If they miss medical appointments, everyone pays attention. But if they spend 6 days a week alone, eating alone, sitting alone, watching television just to hear another human voice, many families quietly accept it. Because it does not look like a medical issue. It looks like personality or circumstance, or widowhood or retirement, or simply the way things are now. But social isolation is a medical issue. And for older adults, it can affect the brain, the immune system, the heart, the muscles, the sleep cycle, and the will to keep participating in life. Here is the simplest way to understand it. The human body was not designed to live in long-term disconnection. We are social beings at a biological level. When meaningful contact disappears, the nervous system can begin to interpret that absence as a kind of threat. Not consciously. Physiologically, the body becomes more stressed. Sleep can worsen. Inflammation can rise. Immune function can weaken. Motivation can drop. And over time, the person may become less active, less engaged, less resilient, and less able to recover from illness or setbacks. In plain English, the body starts living as if something is wrong, even when nothing dramatic is happening. And in an aging body, that matters even more. Because older adults already have less reserve, less muscle reserve, less immune reserve, less cognitive reserve, less ability to bounce back from stress. So isolation does not simply make life sadder. It can make the body more fragile. Point 1. Isolation can change how the aging brain functions. Social interaction is one of the most powerful forms of daily brain exercise. A real conversation requires attention, memory, language, emotional awareness, listening, timing, and response. You have to follow what someone is saying. Remember context. Read tone. Respond appropriately. Adjust in real time. That is an incredibly complex workout for the brain. When an older adult loses that stimulation day after day, month after month, the brain loses one of its most natural forms of maintenance. This does not mean every isolated person will develop dementia. It does not mean loneliness is the only cause of cognitive decline. But research consistently shows that social isolation is associated with a higher risk of cognitive decline and dementia. So if your parent has seemed slower, less sharp, less curious, or less engaged over the last few years, and their social world has also become smaller, those two things may be connected. The cognitive change may not be only dementia. It may be the brain operating without enough stimulation, structure, and human contact, and that distinction matters, because it means there may be practical steps your family can take before assuming the decline is inevitable. Point 2. Isolation is one of the strongest drivers of depression in older adults, and families often miss it. Depression in older adults does not always look the way families expect. It may not look like crying. It may not sound like, "I feel sad." More often it looks like withdrawal, less appetite, more fatigue, less interest in things they used to enjoy, irritability, a flat voice. A person who used to laugh, joke, cook, call, or go out simply becoming quieter and smaller. Families see this and think, they're just getting older. They don't have as much energy now. They've changed. But these can be symptoms of depression. And depression in later life is treatable. That does not mean the answer is always simple. Some people need therapy. Some need medication. Some need a medical review. Some need help with grief, pain, hearing loss, mobility, or sleep. But when isolation is a major driver, one of the missing pieces is often structured human connection. Not vague encouragement. Not, "you should get out more." Not, "call me whenever." Structured, consistent, meaningful contact. A weekly group. A class. A volunteer role. A faith community, a walking group, a recurring meal, a scheduled video call, something that creates expectation and rhythm. because depression thrives in emptiness. Structure gives the weak shape again. If this is already making you think of someone in your family, share this video with the person who helps you make care decisions. This is the kind of issue families need to see together. Point 3. Isolation weakens the body. This is the part many families only notice after something bad happens. A fall, a hospitalization, a sudden decline. A parent who used to walk normally now shuffling from room to room. But the physical decline often begins much earlier. Isolated older adults tend to move less, not because they have consciously chosen to become sedentary, but because movement in later life is often tied to social structure. You walk because you are going somewhere. You leave the house because someone is expecting you. You dress properly because you have a reason to be seen. You keep a routine because your day has contact points. When those contact points disappear, movement disappears with them. And when movement disappears, the consequences are serious. Faster muscle loss, worse balance, more stiffness, less endurance, higher fall risk, poorer cardiovascular health, and lower confidence. Robert's 2 falls were not random. They were downstream from a life that had become smaller and more sedentary. Isolation can also affect medical care. An older adult who is disconnected may be less likely to schedule appointments, report symptoms, take medications correctly, or follow through on recommendations. Social connection is not just companionship, it is also accountability. Someone notices, someone asks, someone says, "Did you call the doctor?" Someone sees the change before it becomes a crisis. Without that network, problems can grow quietly, and the immune system may be affected too. Studies have linked loneliness and smaller social networks with weaker immune responses, including weaker responses to vaccination in some contexts. That means isolation is not just emotionally painful. It can make an older adult physically less protected. Point 4. The warning signs are usually quiet. Social isolation rarely announces itself dramatically. It accumulates. The senior center visit that stopped. The lunch with a friend that got canceled and never restarted. The church service they stopped attending. The neighbor they no longer see. The hobby that disappeared after an illness. The phone that rings less often. The conversations that become shorter and narrower. So here is what I want your family to look for. In the last 6 to 12 months, has your parents' social world gotten smaller? Are there activities they used to do that have quietly disappeared? Are there people they used to see who are no longer part of their life? When you call or visit, do they mostly talk about health problems, television, the past, or the weather, but rarely about current plans, people, or things they are looking forward to? Does your parent have at least one meaningful relationship outside the immediate family? Not just a person they know, a person they actually talk to, a person who expects them, a person who would notice if they disappeared from the routine. If the honest answers concern you, take that concern seriously. This is not overreacting. This is health information. Point 5. What families usually try and what works better. When families realize an older parent is isolated, the first instinct is usually to increase family contact. Call more. Visit more. Check in more often. That is loving. It matters, and you should do it. But it is usually not enough by itself. Because if the family becomes the entire social world, the older adult is still dependent on one small circle for all connection. And adult children are often busy, inconsistent, overwhelmed, or living far away. What works better is helping rebuild social structure outside the family. The goal is not just more contact. The goal is a life with more anchors. A standing Tuesday lunch, a weekly volunteer shift, a Sunday service, a book club, a senior center class, a walking group, a recurring phone program, a video call with the same person every Thursday, a neighbor who stops by every week. Something predictable, something repeated, something that gives the older adult a reason to prepare, participate, and be expected. The key word is structure. An open invitation does not work the same way as a fixed commitment. Call me anytime is kind, but vague. I'll call you every Wednesday at 6 inches is different. Maybe you should go out more is vague. Let's visit the senior center together this Friday and look at the schedule is different. Structure creates expectation. Expectation creates accountability. Accountability creates consistency. And consistency is where the benefit comes from. So here's what your family can do starting this week. Today, map your parents' real social world. Not the one they had 2 years ago, the one they have now. Who do they talk to regularly outside your immediate family? How often? Do they leave the house for any recurring activity? Does anyone outside the family expect to see them? This week, have a specific conversation. Do not begin with, "Are you lonely?" Many older adults will say no, even when they are deeply isolated. Ask better questions. Is there anything you used to do that you miss? Is there anyone you've lost touch with that you'd like to hear from? Would you like to go back to the senior center if we went together the first time? Would it help if we found one regular thing on your calendar each week? Specific questions open doors that general check-ins do not. Also this week, research 2 or 3 real options: senior centers, faith communities, volunteer programs, library groups, walking clubs, classes, local transportation services, phone-based social programs if mobility is limited. Do not overwhelm them with 20 choices. Bring 2 or 3 realistic possibilities. This month, establish one standing social commitment outside the family. Just one. It does not have to solve everything. It just has to begin rebuilding rhythm and establish one fixed family contact, too. Not "I'll call when I can." A specific day, a specific time, protected. Because for an isolated older adult, predictability itself can become medicine. Ongoing, treat social engagement like a health variable. Ask about it the way you ask about medications, appointments, sleep, appetite, and falls, because it belongs in that category. Social connection is not just a quality of life bonus. For older adults, it can be part of staying alive, alert, mobile, and emotionally present. Here is what I want you to remember. Robert's daughter could not undo the 18 months she did not see, but she could act once she understood. She helped him return to a weekly volunteer shift at the local library. She changed the Sunday phone call into a standing Sunday dinner twice a month. She helped him reconnect with a former colleague who lived nearby. 4 months later, Robert was not magically transformed, but he was more engaged, more alert in conversation, more willing to move, more interested in managing his health. His doctor noticed the difference. His daughter noticed the difference. and Robert noticed it too. Medical care still mattered. Medication still mattered. Safety still mattered. But the missing piece was not another pill. It was a life with other people in it. Your parent may need the same thing. And now you know what to look for. If this video helped you, like it, share it with your family, and leave a comment telling me what you're seeing with your parent or someone you love. And subscribe if you haven't already. Next week, we are talking about one of the most important turning points in later life. The first hospitalization after 70. Why it can change everything. What families can do before it happens. And what to do in the critical days after discharge to prevent the spiral that sends so many older adults back to the hospital within 30 days. I'll see you there.